Welcome back to our study and discussion of the book of Revelation. We turn our attention today to chapters 4 and 5 of this magnificent and fascinating book. As we begin to look at chapters 4 and 5 of Revelation, it would be worthwhile for us to consider one of the terms which is central to these two chapters. It's heaven, or the heavens. How is this term heaven used in the Bible? How is it used in the Bible? We are people of the book, and so as people of the book, let us go back to the book to reflect on how this commonplace word was used then. So in the Old Testament, the term heaven, and it is very frequently written as the heavens, translates a Hebrew word shemayim. Shemayim. And if you hear that I am shemayim, that I am signifies plural, so shemayim is the heavens. Shemayim essentially refers to the universe, the firmament. That's how it is used in Genesis 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, the very first words of Scripture. In Hebrew, Bereshit Barak Elohim et Hashemayim et haaretz. Hashemayim, the heavens. In the New Testament, when we see heaven used, it is most commonly translating the Greek word Oranos. Oranos is the term from which the planet Uranus is named. And this is essentially an equivalent to the Old Testament, the Hebrew term Shemayim. The two words are not exactly the same, but they are very, very similar. So how are these used in the Bible, either Old Testament or New Testament? In the Old Testament, Shemayim is always used either to refer to the sky or to the universe. So the clouds in the heavens, or birds of the heavens, or to the universe, the realm of the stars. In the New Testament, Oranos can be found referring to the same things. The birds of the heavens. Also, we find the term heaven being used to refer to the dwelling place of God. We see some evidence of this in the Old Testament and also here in the New. Matthew is famous for recording Jesus as referring to the kingdom of heaven. Heaven in that case being the dwelling place of God. And here in Revelation 4 we see the same thing. Behold, I saw a door standing open in heaven. Or the temple of God was open in heaven from Revelation 11. For our purposes right now, the most important use of the term heaven is as the dwelling place of God. Heaven is the dwelling place of God. We shouldn't think of heaven so much as being a physical destination, a physical space, location that is separated from Earth by ever how many million light years. Rather, we should envision heaven as being an invisible realm that is close beside us. An invisible realm that is normally unseen to our eyes, but which is nearby nonetheless. Ancient Celtic Christians had a tradition of referring to some places as being thin places. A thin place was a place where the veil between the visible earth and the invisible heaven was especially thin, where the veil between earth and heaven was thin. In the Old Testament, we have the notion of a heavenly court. A heavenly court where God sits enthroned in heaven, and then around the throne of God, there were all sorts of angelic beings in attendance. And we get an image for this in the first couple of chapters of Job. In the beginning of Job, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. God sits enthroned in heaven, and the sons of God, the angelic beings, came to present themselves before the Lord. In Revelation 4 and 5, we also get an idea of heaven as being the dwelling place of God, the place where the throne is. There is one who sits on the throne, and you'll notice when you read chapters 4 and 5 that John is far too humble to actually describe the one that he sees. If he even saw a clear glimpse of the one on the throne, he is far too humble and reticent to actually describe who or what he saw. And around the throne, there are the angelic beings. So in these angelic beings that are in attendance around the throne, we have 2 or 3 different categories. There are the elders. The elders, the Greek word here is presbyteros, which normally gets translated as an elder. That's how it is normally translated. These elders, it's not exactly certain who they are. It is probably best to envision them as a category of angel. It's probably best to envision them as being a category of angel, but again, it's uncertain for sure. There were 24 of them. Now, obviously, the number 24 is symbolic. There's a lot of symbolism to that. The 24 can refer back to the total number of the tribes of Israel plus a total number of the apostles. Then there are also the 4 living creatures. The 4 living creatures, as John refers to them. These 4 living creatures are also a category of angel. So we need to go back to the Old Testament to try to understand or figure out who these or what these living creatures are. In Ezekiel chapter 1, the prophet refers to seeing living creatures. And these are the most similar angels that we find in the Old Testament to the living creatures that we see here in Revelation 4 and 5. The only difference being that the living creatures here in Revelation have 6 wings, and in Ezekiel 1 they only have 4, but otherwise these living creatures, these living beings are very similar. We are told later on in Ezekiel that these living creatures are cherubim. So I think that we can safely assume that the living creatures, the living beings here in Revelation are cherubim, as Ezekiel saw them and named them. The other type of angel that we see specifically mentioned in the Bible also are in the Old Testament, and we see them most famously in Isaiah chapter 6. Isaiah chapter 6 is Isaiah's famous call story, his call vision. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord high and lifted up. And in that vision, he saw the seraphim flying back and forth, crying, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord." Seraphim. Notice I am, the I am implying plurality. The seraphim, they are burning ones. The term seraph is a burning one. So the seraphim are the burning ones. These are angels that Isaiah saw in Isaiah 6. So we have different categories of angels, cherubim and seraphim, and potentially the elders are yet another category of angel, but it's hard to know for certain. The term angel in Hebrew is malach. The Greek equivalent for angel is angelos. The Greek equivalent for angel is angelos, but in both cases, whether you're translating malach or angelos, the term means essentially the same thing. An angel is a messenger. An angel is a messenger for God. The angels brought messages from God to human beings. Sometimes they are words of warning, sometimes they're words of comfort, but they're messengers for God. There are only two angels who are specifically named in the canonical 66 books of the Bible. The canonical 66, 39 Old Testament, 27 New Testament, they are Michael and Gabriel. The apocryphal books actually list 5 others, but in the canonical books we only have these 2. Michael is also named an archangel, a ruler of the angels, if you will. Gabriel, of course, is famous for having appeared to both Mary and to Joseph. And then there is also the angel of the Lord, which shows up periodically in the Old Testament. And this angel of the Lord is frequently envisioned to be sort of a pre-incarnate vision of Christ. So angels are messengers from God. They appear from time to time in the Bible as messengers from God, bearing sometimes a message of hope, other times a message of warning. One last thing. What is the universal human reaction to being in the presence of an angel? What is the universal human reaction to being in the presence of an angel? It is fear. Universally throughout the Bible, when an angel appears, the first thing that messenger has to say is, "Fear not, fear not." Human beings in the Bible, they encounter one of these bizarre and frightening seraphim or cherubim, and they're frightened. And this angel, every time, "Fear not, fear not." Enjoy your discussion of chapters 4 and 5 of Revelation.